All right, party people. Here we go. Hey, back at the live stream. Haven't done this in a while. Chances of this going smoothly is almost zero. There is something bound to go wrong, and I'll tell you why. Because every time I do a job or a series of jobs, I have to take the equipment that is in here, and then I have to reset up everything. So there's about, I don't know, maybe 20 things that could possibly go wrong here. I've got way too much stuff hooked up to one computer. And so, if this lacks in quality, I was just going to sit down today and do a video, but then with the video, you got to go through, I got to edit it, I got to put it on Vimeo. It's all just a little bit easier just to do the live stream, and we had the time, so why not? So, that's what we're going to be doing today. I didn't even tell you, really. I just came up with excuses there about potential pitfalls of why this could be shithouse. So, if you're new to the live stream, if this is your first Patreon live stream, don't expect too much, right? This is pretty much the exact same production value that you get with the podcast, right? Which is very minimal. But if you are new, the only way that I'll be able to see what you're saying during the live stream, which of course is the value of doing these things, is by using the chat on the YouTube page. So don't send any comments through Patreon because I don't check them during the live stream and I don't see them. So if I switch screens here to something like that, you'll see that we see the chat, and then that way the chat lives on forever. In case you say something stupid, right? We can capture that forever. We can capture and share that special moment of you saying something stupid. But more, I guess definitely not more importantly, but at the same time, people who watch this thing not live later on in the Patreon group can see the questions that are coming in. If there are questions, sometimes there's not. Why did I sometimes if I do zone out, it's just because I'm reading a comment, right? I just spaced out there. I like the new background light. Less shit than before. Well, there is a perfect example, Ben, of where I've changed absolutely nothing, but something has shifted in the moving process. And if you could see down here, down there, I don't know if you can pick up in the very faint glimmer of the background, but there's about 15 Pelican cases, which is chock full of shit because I just keep accumulating stuff because I'm getting in fights with various people in the industry, which will then necessitate me buying more shit so that basically I'm fully production ready on my own. So we are going to be looking at, I asked you guys to send in projects just now, an hour ago, and we got a lot of projects sent in, so thank you very much if you were one of the people that sent it in. In fact, I know Ray Rushing is here in the live stream, and I just looked at his thing. I was thinking, damn it. That would have been a great opportunity to go over his stuff, but I had already started taking screenshots before Ray, so I really like the look of your thing. And maybe I will do it tomorrow, right? Because I'm doing another live stream tomorrow, and sort of meant to be a surprise, but not really, more a lazy announcement, is that I was on set on last Friday, which it's now Monday here in Australia. So Friday I was on set, and who showed up on set, right? Unbeknownst to myself, as they sort of swing between the Grip and Electrics, was the Wonder Boy, Ian, the Wolverhampton Wonder Boy, and he has decided he would have time for a little bit of a live stream tomorrow. So we're going to try a new format, right? Because I'm always testing, trying to see exactly how shitty these things are going to be. And I think it would be beneficial if there was someone else involved in the live stream, just so that they could take care of the other shit. Because right now it's just me. So when I'm pressing these buttons, going back and forth between the screens, like this is all, I'm just doing this stuff on the fly, and I'm not really paying attention. And should anything go wrong, as we've come to expect here, things will go wrong, someone else can monitor it and maybe be like, hey, Patrick, you're actually talking to no one. Because there's been multiple times where I've done live streams and it just hasn't worked. So we're going to have the Wonder Boy on. Tomorrow there'll be a live stream, which will probably be exactly around the same time. And yeah, that'll be it. It'll actually come out before the podcast this week. And speaking of which sort of look like Ray, sort of looks like your stuff, we have Garrett Hardy Davis on the show tomorrow. I'm doing an interview with him, and that'll come out on Tuesday night. And he sort of, in my mind, is the sports guy. If you don't know Garrett's work, you will after the podcast, but it's he's very heavy in the sports world and does a lot of stuff with really pushed colors. And really, there's a few different areas in cinematography where you can really push the boundaries of what's possible. And music videos is one, and sports is another one. Sports is a little bit less, what's the word? It's less pressure or money involved. Not as many chefs in the kitchen as cars, because cars, you've got the budget to really push it, but really you sort of have to be proven in that field, and you have to be proven and known in that methodology to get the work. But in the sports stuff, there's lots of room to play. You can really go crazy with the colors and go crazy with the looks and how dark it is and how moody it is and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to talk to Garrett, and that is tomorrow. So if you have questions for Garrett, if you go check out his work, Garrett Hardy Davis, then hey, send them through, and perhaps I ask them during the podcast. Okay, so let's look at now. I have no idea. So many people sent through stuff just now. I don't actually know whose project this is. So if you are in this live stream and you recognize this stuff, well, then this is yours. So let's talk about the setup here, right? It's this woman. She goes through, let's see if I can do this. She's walking through this space. She's doing some sort of artsy-fartsy sort of project, and we follow her around the space, and then she's presenting it to the client, showing it off, and that stuff's mine. And that's it. That's all we're going to talk about today. So it's like a 2-minute little client video, which I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine there wouldn't have been a gigantic crew because it looks very naturally lit. So this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be going over today. So if you have any questions before we get started, or if you have any questions during it, just fill it in that YouTube chat and we will go from there. So I'll start talking about this first one. Now, in all of these images, which I just flicked through, the one thing that you will notice almost immediately is that, let's see, where did it go? All right, Jason, this is yours. Good. We have identification on whose project this is. Almost all of these shots are shooting into the shadow, except in that stuff, and except in this one. So already you're off. You're off to a good start, right? You've got number one. You got a good space. So this space is nice. It doesn't help that it's white, but it's a nice space with big naturally lit windows. You're there at a good time, and this shows you. I should really put my picture on the other side of this frame so that you could then see. What if we go like this? Oops, that's not it. What if we go like this? That's not it either. I'm falling apart. I'm crumbling here. Here we go. So this frame really shows off the benefits of a good location at the right time. You've got these big, soft windows, and this is, I would imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, Jason, but I would imagine that this is indirect sunlight, right? So probably the sun is over on this side of the building. It's shining. It's hitting the sky out here, and then that skylight is just falling in. And that's why you don't get, you get a little bit of a hard shadow in here, but realistically, it's a very, very soft, mild shadow. You can see it in here. The contrast is not that great, just enough to make it interesting, right? I think it's a very cool looking image in a very cool space. You got this little thing that's worn out. The depth of field in this whole spot is very small and limited, and the focus is very easy to follow along with. So you're shooting into that shadow. This is all good, right? This is how the ad sort of opens up, and it's a strong start. So I'm also super slow on the old shortcuts here. Okay, so this is the space that we're going to be playing in mainly. And again, we're doing the same thing here. We're shooting into the shadow, right? We're on the right side of the line. Imagine if we were over here, the shot would be much less interesting. So good start so far. Now, I guess the thing is, very hard to judge unless we know exactly the tools that you're working with. So Jason, seeing as how you're in the live stream, it would be beneficial if you let us know exactly how many people are on this thing and what your, not the budget level, but did you have any toys to play with? Could you have done anything outside this window? If I was scouting this location, the very first thing that I would say was, okay, well, what level? Like, even if I was sort of remotely scouting this thing, I'd say, well, what floor are we on, right? Because if we're on, the chances of this being on the ground floor is almost zero, judging by the size of these windows and the relationship to the ground. But if we're on the first floor, or the second floor, sorry, how easy is it going to be to get lights in here, right? That's what I would be looking for in the location process. because I'd want to say, well, let's say that the sun doesn't play ball and that it's rainy outside and we want a different look than rainy. Are we going to have problems lifting lights outside of this window? If we are going to have problems lifting lights, say this is on the 4th floor, right, and there's no chance that we're going to get light in there unless, now we're talking, larger budget commercials, unless we put something on the roof, hang the light over, hang the light down, and then we blast our sun through there. If not, we just have to tell the director or the production, whoever it is, listen, we can use this spot. It's just that it's going to be very difficult to affect the weather, judging based on the location itself. So you're going to be limited in the scope of what you can do. So, okay, this was overcast and a small crew. Okay, so there's going to be no lights coming from outside if you are with a small crew. I guess what I would do, I don't know, looking at this, because more and more people are sending me emails asking about different units and different power and all of that sort of stuff. I would say that the middle of the road budget for something like this, if you wanted to affect the way that it would look, would be M40s. So let's say this is on the 2nd story, so 1 story up from the ground. You could put high boys out here. You could put, I just did this. This is why I'm talking this way. You could put 4 M40s out here, and you could get a very nice sunny look with just M40s, right? So that's what you would need in here. A lot of people think, well, you got to go 18Ks when you're outside. If you're competing with the sun, you definitely have to. If you're trying to go the opposite way of the sun, you definitely need the bigger units, the 18Ks. But an M40 on a gloomy day, or even on a sunny day, if you're going the same direction as the sun, that's going to be enough punch to get you into this zone. But that's a horse of a different color. Let's stay focused, Patrick. Okay, this shot is nice. I would say that, and this is just, again, personal preference about where you want to set the black point. I would probably want a little something in here. It has a lot to do with wardrobe in this scenario, but it's just a little bit there's a little bit of crunch, right? And I'm sensing this crunch, and I should have pulled screen grabs because someone, this is where my lack of preparation begins to show. Someone just sent in a music video that they shot, and the tonality was really, really good. And that comes from a strong colorist, but it also comes from the DP on the day, making sure that your tones are just in the right spot and everything is sort of checked, including wardrobe. And this is just a hair crunchy, right? This is just, it would be nice if it was just opened up a little bit, because it just feels in stark contrast to the rest of everything. And contrast is good, right? But I would say, if anything in this shot, I would just maybe I would just open up a little bit, let a little bit more light back in here, knowing that you could then take that down, and then that would just add a little bit of level. The other thing you could do is you just 4x poly off to the side here, and you're just using the ambient that's coming in the room. Or it's not that much because it's a dark sweater. It's not actually that much that you're looking for, but I would throw just a little bit of something in there, right? Because it's not really, like, if you're going to go silhouette, then you go silhouette, and you got to take care of this. And I like the silhouette look, but this is like sort of a mix between there's I don't know if this was supposed to be silhouette, and then you got that little skin leak in there, but that's what I would say only for this shot. But the composition is nice, right? You're using all the depth in the room, you're using the light, you're shooting into it, so really cool frame. And yeah, I like it. Okay, next one, here we go. Shot of the face, which is, again, now we are on the other side of the room where we were over here. Now we've come over this way and we're looking back this direction. So again, nice orientation to the sun. We got nice little highlight there. We've got a little bit of contrast coming down here. And I would say, again, that black sweater isn't really helping anybody. But I would say that, again, I guess all I can do is comment on how I would do it. So obviously you guys are not going to all do it the same as me, but I would add some more contrast, right? Add some more contrast here with floppies. And then, say if you have no money and you don't have any lights on set, even if you have no money, you could probably still swing a quasar tube or something. I would just edge this side, right? Because you get this gloomy dark hole, and this really from here to here is pretty much all the same tone, right? You've got good variance here. You got your little dark there, you got your light, super light there, dark, then you got this edge, which is nice, then you got the transition. It's getting a little crazy with the lines. Then you got that transition, but then in this huge chunk of screen real estate, you've got the same tone, right? From there to there. That's all one tone. And I'd just be looking at ways that maybe we could break it up with something. Maybe we could add some contrast. Maybe we could do something a little bit different. And the way that you would do that would be to, just, well, let's see if we can do it. Here we go. This is the true test. Ladies and gentlemen, do we shit the bed with the computer power? Switch to that. And come in here. Invert. And then we will up that. Like this. And then we blur it out. Didn't work. That didn't work either. There we go. Take that off. And okay, so as you wrap around, it gets darker. Then in here, you'd want to go the other way. You'd want to take that quasar tube or take that passive bounce, and you'd want to up it because you want to etch out that level. So come in here like this. So this is where you would be in that zone. Trying to maybe even get in there. Hopefully this is working. And then we blur that. And this looks like shit. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, obviously you wouldn't make it that color and it wouldn't be all shitty like this. But you can see where the light would be coming from. And again, you don't have to do this, but I would definitely say, even if you were to ignore that bit, I'd still say just trying to bring around that contrast and just create something so that the tones are always subtly shifting. Those big blocks of boring that we definitely want to get rid of. So that's that. Let's go to the next one and switch back here. Okay, this is a really nice one. This is I've seen and shot this stuff multiple times using a big soft window. You've got it coming over her hand. This really is where shooting into shadow pays off. You don't really have to soften it off because it's an overcast day outside. You've done well. Again, wardrobe sort of hosing us, but nice that you're shooting over these things. And the best part about, the part that I liked about this spot was, you could probably link to it in the chat. I don't know if that's possible, but for other people who haven't seen it, the good part is that flowing sort of easy rig style is strong throughout the whole thing. And it's floatier than the figure 8, which I've talked about in the past, but it is still, it's cool. So I would say this is the smart thing here is you're shooting over this, a little bit of a longer lens, and using the blur to create layers, because we got dark, then we got light in the middle, then you got background, you got nice shape here on the hands that switches over to the dark side. This is all really good stuff. You can't really do much better with this location. Here we go. This is where you can start to see you got to have those shifts, right? Because if you look at her face, and which one did we just do? If you look at her face here, what makes this thing interesting is color shift. Oops, switch to this. What am I doing here? Oh, I'm writing in the. This is not working. Close. Well, now I'm on pen tool. This is awesome. Can't do that. Oh no, Panic at the Disco. Let's try now. There we go. So you got light, dark, light, dark. Good. This, light, just all the same. And I think you can tell, right? If you're flicking through the images, you can tell this one looks good, this one looks good, this one a little bit flat. A little bit flat. And how you would fix that, it's tricky with this composition in this room orientation, but what you could do is just come from a lamp on the ground, camera left, try and get a little bit more maybe in this area of the face, and then again you'd have to floppy and create a little bit of, you just have to create a little bit of light coming from this way as well, just to mix it up, right? Just to feel a little bit different. Let's go to the next one. This one, we're getting in that zone of the same thing here. It's a nice composition, and if you were on a budget that allowed you to get some lights up outside, I'd say you could easily fix this problem of flatness by just edging her out more. So you'd have to have, say you park an M40 through a 4x frame of, a fairly heavy diffusion. You park it outside here, you shine it at her, it just picks her up a little bit more and would help add to the ability for the audience to just know exactly where to look. So I'd say if you were in here, just adding a little bit of edge there and then trying to either take this down or take one side up, one side down. I don't know. It just feels a little bit flat if I was looking at it. I can definitely see the overcast day that you're talking about now. But that would be my look for that shot. Just trying to edge her out because it just, I like what the tungsten's doing here, right? That's just the point of interest. That doesn't really have to be on. It makes no sense, but it looks cool. And I'd probably try and just get that contrast in wherever you can. Let's go to the next one. Whoops. Where are we at here? Okay, now we get into this area where we are inside of this fashion place, wherever we're talking about fabrics or whatever. And again, I'm imagining that you don't really have much time to go in there and set things up, but still, you can do some real easy things that may help shape this up a little bit. Right here, you'll notice if we compare this to those hand shots from before, we really are coming what feels like an industrial light straight down, right? And that takes some of the interest away. Now what's providing interest is the color. The color in the outfits is providing interest. You're starting to bleed these two together. This blue stands out, but really the shape and the contrast that was so apparent in the earlier part of the ad, this is where it all starts to just to fall down a little bit. And I would say, okay, well, how do you remedy this very quickly on a budget? Well, if we go to the wider shot, I'd say, I'm just imagining, again, I don't know, but I'm imagining that these things are positioned directly above where we're looking, right? It's hitting this guy. It's hitting the top of her head. So I'm imagining there's another one of those directly above the frame. I would say you kill that. I would say kill that and come in with something over here, right? Something with more direction on it. That way you get on her face here. You can still, it's got to feel like it's from above, right? But you cheat it down a little bit. You cheat it, even 2 feet will make a big difference in cheating it down and cheating it a little bit flatter onto them. And so instead of in a straight down orientation like this, now you're looking at an orientation like this. And that'll just help reach into the eyes. So as you do that, what's then going to happen is you're going to get shape on this side of the face, a little bit of darkness. And it doesn't have to be much, right? It only has to be a very small variance. Say you want to play a little bit more high key, then you just lessen the contrast. But the idea that you can't have contrast in an office setting is not right. And you've got that back here. You've got this really dark look, which makes them stand out even more and makes this harsh light stand out even more. So maybe if you could have balanced, you could have done 2 things. You could have brought this up and then shaped them and made it a little bit less contrasty, or you just bring them down and you open up a little bit to make it a little bit more, I guess, neutral would be the word. But if you came off with something there, then in this shot, all you'd have to do is switch to the other side of the table and shoot this way, because you'd have your one light set up over here in the wide. It'd be set up over here. That's where you've got your sky panel or your light mat, probably if you're running gun, a little light mat, and you're just pushing light this way. That way you keep it off the back here and you just point it down the line and everyone looks just a little bit more shapely, and you can get away with it. You're in an office, but you'll be surprised at how much people will forgive you for a little bit of fuckery with the office lights. So, and then again, you could probably floppy this off and just take away some of the light. This hair thing is not bad. That little hair light, which I assume is coming from another light over here. But even though you're limited in terms of what you can do running gun, you can still, you just black wrap that light above and BYO your own, and you can hide it with like this element in the frame is nice. Again, the composition is cool, which we haven't talked about too extensively here, but you're using that easy rig float style and hiding a bunch of the frame that isn't interesting. So you're already winning there, and it creates those layers because you got foreground. Like if this wasn't there, it'd be pretty boring, this shot. You've got foreground, then you've got foreground guy. Can we erase all these things? Let's see. I really should have done this on another level. So if this guy was dark here, you know, it'd be even better because you go across the wood, across dark guy to where we want to look, to where the focus is. And then back here, if you just lightened it up a little bit, oof, just ever so slightly, just thicken things up a little bit because it's just that hair of crunch is there. Okay, this is a good example. We've seen this shot. This is basically the same thing that we just looked at. The only thing that's cool now is because Jason has provided this A and B right next to one another, these shots, we can see this shot versus this shot. And this is the exact same lighting. He hasn't done anything. There's been no trickery here. He's just moved to the opposite side. And the opposite side, in my mind, yields much less desirable results, right? There's much less interest in this shot. Even though you've got this nice little light here, you got this nice little edge from the sun or from the sky, you've got that contrast in the chair, you've got the contrast here, which is nice. But once you get to the meat of it, like this is just, it's so much flatter than this. And this is the same thing in this one. Not only, again, good composition, you got this line going that way, you got her arm going that way, you got the window going that way, you got the light to dark to light to dark to light to dark to shitty sweater. You got all those things going. This is a good looking shot in this space. And then this one, it also doesn't help that you're looking, you know, you're pushing flat directly on her. So when you push flat into that, it's like, yeah, it's very hard. And I see that, you know, you're doing your best here because you've got this little area in the back, which is nice. A little bit of depth in a shot that, you know, you could have easily eliminated that. If you would have come down further, you would have eliminated that background because it would have been covered up by this chair and her. So you're fighting there. But I would say, you know, this really is the money side of the line in this situation. Okay, next. And the grand finale, this is the face shot. This is cool. And yet again, another example of how being in the right spot in the room can really help things. You imagine if we were back on the opposite side of the line, how boring and flat this image would be. But I don't know. This is cool back here. We'll start with the cool stuff. You got cool window. You got cool window in the frame. You got nice light in on her this way. You got nice tungsten light back there. Good level back here. But again, it's this flatness. This flatness is what I'd be looking at. Like the difference, if you were to look at some of the people that we've had on this show and some of the other top cinematographers, the difference is in that bottom third of the image, knowing exactly how to push the tones can make such a difference in the feel. And I'm kicking myself for not taking screenshots of this music video I just saw, because it was a perfect example of really being able to manage that last third of the level, the bottom third of the waveform. That is really where this transition makes such a big difference. And it can be, it's the difference between interesting and, well, you've got boring, which would sort of be in that one tone area, which I would classify. This is just, it looks great as a whole, the shot, but if we're nitpicking, this bit there could just be a little bit more interest. So it goes from boring to perfect to you've gone too far and you've underexposed. And I don't know what you shot this on, but almost impossible to do on the Alexa to underexpose that much that you can't get something out of it. Even the same now with the new RedSense, it's almost impossible. Like, you have to seriously fuck it up. It's got to be so dark in this white room, and especially in a white room, you couldn't really have her face at key and get away with underexposing so greatly that you can get no information out of it. But it is that subtle balance, and I think that's what, and I'm talking to myself here, that's the same thing that I have to work on. You just have to get better at managing that last little third and that last step in the process, because you've done so much here, right? You've done all these good things, but all of these good things, you still end up with something that you can improve on, right? And I would have probably done the exact same thing. Composition you've taken care of, color you've taken care of with that little tungsten here. You've got the right weather, the right time of day to go with the look that you're after. It's just getting this just a little bit of interest in there. So, okay, you shot on the Red Scarlet W. But I don't know, I liked it as a whole. I mean, you did some really cool things and some stuff that we've talked about on the show, and hopefully, Jason, you can see exactly what I'm talking about and you're not going crazy yelling at the screen. But that's what hold on. Oops, I got a battery issue. Just had a block battery die. Okay, so how would you have fixed that last shot? This is from Jamie. I would say, now, at risk of sounding quite repetitive, which I obviously have no fear of because I spout about the same shit every week, I would say, how could you make this shot better? I wouldn't change anything except the density in here. And the only way that you can change the density in there is with neg fill. Neg fill is the sort of easy answer, because the other way that you could change the density is by adding more light from outside. But that isn't really an option here. So if I was there on the day, I would say, well, how do we change this? How do we make this less flat? We could bring in neg fill. Okay, but then the neg fill thing is really, and I've harped on this, it is the hardest bit. Because it really is, now it is judgment. Now it is knowing and experience and saying, well, fuck, that looks really, really dark. Like, I think that's too much. But knowing in your head that that's not actually too much and that you've talked yourself out of going that dark before. So I would say if you push in neg, and maybe, again, maybe to create interest, you push in neg this way, right? Just out of frame right. And then you either do an active bounce or a passive bounce from outside, because you'd only need just a little bit. And you'd want to get that, we've talked about that reflective light before. You would just be looking for something in here, and it could be, a skin type thing or a hair type thing where you maybe won't get that reflection, that reflected light, but you're just looking for a little glint to make it interesting. So always fighting boring, basically. Flatness is not good. So, I don't know. That's probably how I would fight it. I think. Oops. Let's see what else. Oops, that's not right. Control. There we go. This stuff. I was going to talk about this stuff. This is this is what I was going to break down, but I never actually got around to it. This is outside. This is midday, and this is what. So this is sun that's hitting our boy here, and this is what a 12 by 12 black will do to straight sunshine. The 12 by 12 black is all along this frame, all right behind the camera, right behind me, completely sucking up all the light. So what we've done is we've used the sun as a backlight. I'll probably do this on the podcast. I don't know why I'm doing this now. But use the sun as a backlight. We get this little edge. Then in his eyes, I don't know if you can see this. How do we undo that? In his eyes, you can see a 12 by 12 bounce. The 12 by 12 bounce is just here, out of the frame, and it's pushing light this way, which gives us this line and that highlight. And then the neg is taking away all of this light over here. And you can still see, again, the final frame, it's not that contrasty, but it's as contrasty as I could possibly make it, given the space and given the time of day that we were in there. So I don't know why I'm talking about that now. I'll probably talk about that later. Okay, that's going to do it. That's our look at Jason's work. Jason, job well done. Spot looks nice, and the location was killer. So big difference a location can make. Let's look at the questions before we finish up here. What do we got? Anything? Taking that last bit of neg fill to make more contrast on the face. Yes. Great job, Jason. Indeed, Jason. Okay. Let's see. Caesar here. You mentioned earlier getting into fights with various people in the industry, thus making you buy more stuff to be fully production ready. Can you elaborate on that? No, that pretty much sums it up. I unfortunately live in an area where we don't have access to all the tools all the time, being in Australia and then going on travel jobs. So rather than dick around with other people's stuff, I'd rather just have my own production ready little kit. And it's not everything, but I have most of the stuff that I use on a daily basis. And as we've gone over in the past, if you can be fairly predictable in the amount of days that you're going to have, it can actually make you money, which is the point of all of this. So it's fun to make cool stuff, but it's also fun to make cool stuff and a little bit of cash. So let's see. Anything else questions-wise from the party people listening? If not, we will see you tomorrow and yet again in another live stream, this time with the Wonder Boy, and I'm going to get around to the questions because I didn't really answer any questions today from people that have sent them in on Patreon. So if you've got questions about I don't know, specific projects or details, or we'll probably look. That's what we'll do. So tomorrow, this shot, this was stuff that we did on Friday. So I will probably remember that I mentioned I was going to look at the storyboards and talk about how we were going to light it. Well, I've already lit it, so it's too late to do that. But I may just look at the storyboards again and look at the location tomorrow, and we'll talk about how we approached it. And we may not look at the final images like we are right now, but that'll be the idea. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and there seems to be no more questions, so we will end it there. Ladies and gentlemen, I bid you farewell. Thanks.